I'm gonna ask you all a question. What was it about Yooka-Laylee that people originally liked? What could possibly be redeemed? And most importantly, does this remake actually deserve a second chance? I mean, when Yooka-Laylee first released back in 2017, it wasn't just a disappointing game. It was a full-blown industry-wide cautionary tale. It turned my pessimistic streak into a full-blown life philosophy. Now, nearly a decade later, Playtonic Games is back with Yooka-Replaylee, a rebuilt version that claims to fix everything that went wrong. So let's dive in and find out whether this new version finally lives up to the promise, or if it's just another case of please clap nostalgia. If you love platform games, do yourself a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to Scareticulous, and ring that bell, because I'll be talking about those a lot today. For those who missed the first train wreck, Playtonic Games is a small studio made up of ex-Rare developers. You know, the people who gave us Banjo, Kazooie, and Tooie back in the glory days of the N64. They raised a staggering $2.5 million on Kickstarter to bring that magic back. And at first, everyone was hyped. A colorful, fun 3D platformer? Yes, please. Then the game launched, and it stunk. It felt like opening a treasure chest expecting gold, only to find crusty underwear and stale Doritos.
Gold, 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 gold. Huh? Oh, it's just a little plastic treasure chest.
Plastic!
Aye, but it's based on a real treasure chest.
Not only did Yooka-Laylee fail to recapture that Banjo magic, it actively turned people against the genre. For years afterward, you couldn't even mention 3D Collectathon without someone saying, "Oh, like Yooka-Laylee? Hard pass." Trying to move Yooka and Laylee around felt like steering an ice cube with a lasso across a kitchen counter. Everything was floaty, delayed, and unresponsive. Rolling felt loose, jumping felt like a gamble, and flying was like controlling one of those drone things, except drunk. You never felt in control, and when moving isn't fun in a game, your entire platform game collapses. We now exist in an industry where this kind of floatiness just isn't acceptable anymore. The worlds were massive, not in a wow, so much to do kind of way, but in a why am I wandering for minutes doing nothing kind of way. Banjo-Kazooie's level design worked because it was centralized. You always had a landmark, an intuitive path, and a sense of flow. Yooka-Laylee tossed that rulebook straight into a blender and hit puree. Each world felt like it was shredded, glued back together, and sprinkled with random objectives. You'd trek across huge empty areas, hit a wall because you hadn't unlocked a move yet, and waste time backtracking. Or sometimes you'd enter an area and it's just a pain in the ass to trek through, like they just hadn't finished beta testing yet. It wasn't exploration. It was punishment disguised as exploration. It felt like you were being bottlenecked at every turn, and that produced an ire in me that only grew with time. The tasks you were given were flat out unfun. Blow a box through this maze, chase a ghost with your floaty controls, push a block with clunky physics. Rinse, repeat. Every mission felt like a household chore wrapped in bright colors. Even the Kartos mine sections, clearly inspired by Donkey Kong Country, were ruined by poor camera angles and bad physics. At least Grant Kirkhope and David Weiss delivered. The soundtrack was the one shining gem in this pile of missed opportunities. It had charm, it had nostalgia, even if a few tracks felt slightly like remixed versions of Banjo's old themes. By the end, Yooka-Laylee became exactly what fans feared, a lifeless copy of something once great. It wasn't the love letter to Banjo, it was more like a ransom note. We wanted a collectathon platformer that felt like the N64 days again, and the monkey paw curled one finger back, giving us Yooka-Laylee. A truly underwhelming experience that can only be described as what it feels like to finally grow up. Sometimes you really can't go back home again. Fast forward to 2025, and against all odds, Playtonic tried again. Yooka-Replaylee isn't just a re-release, it's a full remake. Should have called it Yooka-Redooey, am I right? New visuals, overhauled movement, refined missions, and a ton of quality of life improvements. The game launched at just $30, with discounts for original backers. And yes, I was one of them. I grabbed the PS5 version for the 60 frames per second smoothness, and from the opening cutscene, something felt different. First off, the storybook unfolding of the centerpiece in the beginning was a cute little addition. Movement. The controls are finally fixed. I can finally move, and it actually feels good. It's a game now. Jumping feels sharp and responsive, rolling is a lot tighter now and has that satisfying momentum, and attacks connect the way they should and, dare I say it, actually feel fun. The floatiness is gone, replaced with precision and snappy feedback. You can even stomp on enemies now like Goombas, which you couldn't do before, and it feels great. Usually, I just like knocking the crap out of them though. The flight mechanic from the original game is still here, with Laylee awkwardly hauling Yooka through the air like something straight out of Operation Dumbo Drop. But this time it's been nerfed, and honestly, for the better. You can't just take off whenever you want anymore. Flight is now tied to special cloud boxes you can lick to gain temporary flight for as long as your stamina bar lasts. Basically working like flight pads in Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie. The more you upgrade your stamina, the longer you can stay airborne or perform other special moves, which give the mechanic a nice balance. Personally, I think this change was absolutely for the best. In the first game, flight was basically a way to brute force your way through half-baked levels. Now you actually have to rely on your platforming skills again, instead of just spamming flight to cheese every obstacle. It finally feels like flight is part of the challenge, not a workaround for it. The charge spin roll also makes a comeback, but this time you can spam it to chain attacks and mow through enemies almost as fast as Sonic. It's flashy, satisfying, and surprisingly smooth. Playtonic was clearly confident in these new mechanics, confident enough to build coin rush missions into nearly every stage. These timed challenges demand precision control while rolling, and the crazy thing is, they actually work. The movement is finally good enough to support the gameplay they dreamed of back in 2017. Collect all the coins in time and you earn a Pagey. But more importantly, you earn that feeling the original was missing. Control that's fun just for the sake of it. The upgrades you earn later through tonics act more like enhancements to your existing moveset, rather than brand new abilities. And honestly, that's the perfect balance. It gives players just enough freedom to experiment and move around fluidly, while still rewarding progress with supercharged versions of what you already know. It's a smart design choice. You feel stronger without breaking the game, and it keeps progression satisfying without overcomplicating the controls. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Someone clearly studied Mario Odyssey. But you know what? If you're gonna steal from the best. Pages are now everywhere, and the flow of rewards feels constant. Combine that with the quids system and quills, and there's a new secret around every corner of this game. They didn't just add filler, they rebalanced the pacing so you're almost always working towards something that progresses the game forward. Pages are still used to unlock new levels. Pretty standard stuff. But here's the thing. They're literally everywhere. You'll probably unlock every world before you've even cleared the second level. So there's never really any pressure to collect them all. Progression just sort of happens. Back in the old Banjo games, every Jiggy you earned mattered. You had to work for it. And that sense of challenge made progression feel rewarding. With Yooka-Replaylee's new Odyssey-inspired approach, unlocking worlds feels almost like a foregone conclusion. Some players might not love that. It definitely takes away some of the old-school challenge. But honestly, for the kind of game Yooka-Laylee strives to be, it feels like a necessary evil. Sometimes you have to loosen the reins a bit to make what's already there actually shine. Ironically, it's actually quills that feel more exciting to hunt down now, since they tie directly into tonics and upgrades that change how you play the game. That's where the real sense of progress comes from. Not just opening another door, but actually making your moveset stronger and more fun. You get pages for beating bosses, finding hidden ghosts, basically this game's Jinjos, completing races or puzzles, transforming into creatures for unique missions, collecting every quill in a level, or just discovering secrets in the environment. They've also introduced a new collectible currency called quids, a cheeky British nod, used to buy tonics, outfits, and upgrades. There's a ton of them, and honestly, it's almost too generous. Inflation must be wild in this universe. Meanwhile, Trouser returns as your shady snake salesman, selling permanent upgrades while Vendy handles cosmetics and tonics. Together, they form a weirdly charming yet slightly confusing in-game economy. I'm not mad at it. If it works, I won't complain. I'll just look in the other direction. One small critique of the Ghost Riders, they're a fun little nod to the Jinjos from Banjo-Kazooie, sure, but honestly, I don't think the extra gimmick of chasing them down, feeding them, or beating them up, or solving little mini-game puzzles to grab them really adds all that much. It's not even really a challenge, it's just predictable busy work you repeat in every stage. Once I find them, just let me collect them. They're supposed to be my friends, aren't they? I'm literally rescuing them. I shouldn't have to fight for friendship, Playtonic. Write that down for the next game. Bring back the Minjo energy from Tooie. I'll never forget the first time I found one. It's like, oh cute, a Jinjo. and then it started chasing after me, and I'm like, oh my god, kill it! Now here's the shocker. The levels are mostly unchanged from the 2017 version. Sure, they tweaked them a fair bit and reworked certain sections of each level to play more smoothly, added some polish and shine, but 90% of the previous levels are all still here. So does that mean the game plays like shit? Well, no. Actually, against all odds, the levels work now. Because the controls are fixed and the rewards are flowing, shockingly, those same levels suddenly feel like great sandboxes to play around in. Exploration that used to feel like a chore now feels addictive, and it's actually hard to put the controller down. I can't believe I'm saying this about Yooka-Laylee. I couldn't give my controller away when I was playing that game. Certain problem areas from the first game have been tweaked, redesigned, and now feature a locked camera perspective, and that change alone makes them so much easier to navigate. Those little grottos and sub-areas that used to be an absolute pain in the ass, they've finally been cleaned up. It's like Playtonic went through each one with a clipboard that said, okay, how do we stop people from breaking their controllers? They've also added warp bookmarks across each world, and honestly, it's one of the best new features in the entire remake. You explore, activate a marker, and boom. Instant fast travel. It's the missing quality of life feature that finally makes the whole experience feel modern and cohesive. It adds to the exploration experience. Think Breath of the Wild light. My only gripe, in the overworld of Ivory Towers, the warp system feels a little half-baked. You can only fast travel within a single section of the hub, and when you move to a new area, you're stuck warping between marks in that section instead of across the entire hub. It's like they built a great system and then forgot to connect the dots. It's not a deal breaker by any means, just one of those why didn't they think of that moments. Maybe we'll see it patched in later. They even removed fall damage, because seriously, who asked for realism in a cartoon about a lizard and a bat? I know that Banjo had fall damage, but it's kind of an outdated gameplay mechanic that's probably better left in the past. Boss fights now have visible life bars. Thank you! They also have clearer attack phases, and a few bosses, like the one in Galleon Galaxy, were completely reworked. It's not brutally unfair anymore, it's actually fun. Put on that health extender though, just saying. Now let's talk about the minigames, because boy oh boy, the original Yooka-Laylee really thought it was clever with these. Back then you had 3 flavors of frustration. The car toss minecart sections, the Rextro arcade challenges, and a handful of random level-specific gimmicks that felt like tech demos Playtonic had left over from the Mr. Pants days. The car toss minecart rides were supposed to be a throwback to Donkey Kong Country. You know, fast-paced, challenging thrill rides. Instead, they were awkward, sluggish, and ruined by the dreaded camera demon. Every jump felt half a second off, and every collision felt unfair. Also, the gem requirements for each pagey were a pain in the ass. In Yooka-Replaylee, those minecart sections have finally been salvaged. Somewhat. The controls are sharper for sure, and the camera doesn't fight you now. They're still tricky, but they're finally fun tricky, not throw your controller across the room tricky. I just have one problem with them. I understand collecting a certain amount of gems per stage to get a pagey, but why do we need to collect every single gem in the stage to get the third pagey? It literally requires you to play the stage over and over again by trial and error until you do a perfect run. Kinda unforgiving for what ultimately amounts to a baby game. Then there's Rextro, everyone's favorite polygonal dinosaur mascot for nostalgic disappointment. His original arcade minigames were clunky, frustrating, and almost universally hated. Half the time you weren't fighting the challenge, you were fighting the controls. But in the remake, Playtonic completely scraps these in favor of Rextro challenges. Smaller, tighter, precision-based obstacle runs that feel like something ripped from Captain Toad. They're short, clever, and actually pretty fun, when they're not being cheap as hell. Beat one and you get not just one pagey, but 3, because apparently even the game agrees you've suffered enough. Finally, the level-specific side activities. Things like environmental puzzles, races, and transformations have all been cleaned up too. They're better integrated now, control better, and the improved movement makes them feel like actual challenges instead of chores. Nothing drags, nothing feels broken, and most importantly, nothing overstays its welcome. In short, what was once the most dreaded part of Yooka-Laylee has become one of its best features. The minigames no longer feel like punishment. They feel like a reward for mastering the mechanics and mixing things up. It's almost poetic. The things we used to skip are now the things we look forward to. Graphically, this game is still stunning to look at. I mean, the original looked nice, but it still felt like an unfinished tech demo. The original game was developed in Unity, which is probably what led to a lot of physics-based wonkiness and graphical inferiority. The switch to Unreal Engine 5 makes a huge difference in the look of the game and overall quality of your experience. The new smooth frame rate, lighting engine, texture work, moving grass, rippling water, and other special effects make Yooka-Replaylee look like it actually belongs on the same shelf as Donkey Kong Bonanza or Mario Odyssey. Not bad for an indie team of about 50 people. One insane new feature they added to some of these levels, and I really hope it doesn't stop here, is a dynamic fog system you can actually interact with. Yeah, fog. You can move through it, disturb it, even watch it roll and react to your movements in real time. It sounds like a small thing, but it adds a ton to the atmosphere. That moody, tactile feel that makes the world feel alive. It's the kind of stylish flourish that tells you the devs were showing off a little bit. I bet they were so proud of themselves when they got that working. And they should be. It looks fantastic. The one weird thing still plaguing the game is pop-in, which I noticed a fair bit of. It's like the world starts erasing itself the moment you walk away. Grass, trees, enemies, all vanishing like they owe the render engine money. It's like the game wants to maintain the illusion of foliage for as long as they can afford it. You'd think this wouldn't be an issue on a PS5, but to be fair, Playtonic did switch to a different engine, so I get that it's not as simple as flipping a switch. Hopefully these hiccups get ironed out in a patch, and maybe even a sequel, because everything else here looks incredible. The soundtrack in Yooka-Replaylee has been completely reimagined, this time with a fully orchestrated cinematic score that gives the game a real sense of scope and energy. Composers Grant Kirkhope and David Weiss return, but instead of the synthesized samples from the 2017 release, the new score is performed live by the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. And yeah, it sounds as incredible as that sentence implies. The shift to live instrumentation adds depth and warmth that the original soundtrack never quite had, breathing new life into levels that already sparkle with personality. Let's be real. To make Yooka-Laylee finally playable, Playtonic had to make a lot of concessions. They scrapped the old N64 system of earn every pagey and flooded the world with collectibles, trading challenge for accessibility. Moves that once had to be purchased are now unlocked from the start, the level expansion mechanic is gone, and the exploration has been streamlined with warp bookmarks. Even the frustrating Rextro minigames were reworked into more addictive, reliable challenges. It's clear the developers had to sand down the rough edges. Less trial and error, fewer punishments, and more constant rewards. In short, Yooka-Replaylee traded Banjo-Kazooie's puzzle box complexity for Mario Odyssey's smooth, dopamine-drip pacing. Some of that old-school magic was lost in translation, sure, but what we got in return was something far more important. A game that actually feels fun to play. That all said, after all these years, my opinion of Yooka-Laylee has completely changed. It's still not perfect, and it's probably not going to win over anyone who's already sworn off the 3D platformer genre, but let's be honest, this game was never meant for everyone. It was built for a very specific kind of player, the ones who never stopped hearing the jingle of Grunty's lair, or dreaming of that mythical stop and swap. It's for the gamer still holding on to that feeling of discovery the N64 once gave us. And now, finally, Yooka-Replaylee delivers on that promise. It feels like the game Playtonic wanted to make all along, the one that proves there's still magic left in this genre. If only this had been the version we got in 2017, we'd probably have Yooka-Laylee by now. But hey, sometimes it takes a few tries to get it right. Impossible Lair hinted they were learning. This game confirms it. So yeah, I can finally say it without hesitation. Yooka-Laylee has been redeemed. And that feels really good to say. As for what Playtonic should do next, well, maybe that's a story for another video. I don't want to spoil you with too much redemption arc in one sitting. Let's just say I've been thinking about what a true sequel to Yooka-Laylee could look like, and my answer to that might surprise you. If you like this one, drop a like, leave a comment, and tell me what you think. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on playing.